Oh, I don't have a 10 o'clock scheduled, if that gives you a little time.
Actually 10 would be perfect.
Would it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Otherwise we could move to Monday as well. That's the other time that I have some opening.
No, 10 on Wednesday, that would be great, because then I won't feel rushed, and I'll have some time to savor.
Yeah,
all the wonderful.
That's a lot of turning on a dime to then be ready to go from therapy to presenting. Home at this point, yeah. I will plan to see you 10 next week. Good luck with your next hour here.
Oh, thank you, honey. Thank you. Great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm always happy to. Very happy to.
Okay, I'll see you.
Bye. Thank you.
Good morning, afternoon, noon. Hi, Kim. Nice to see you back. Lisa, oh, it's so lovely to see faces again. Not like I've been living in a hole, but see people again that I haven't seen in a long time, and or to see people come back. Deb, I put people on gallery view. Sarah, nice. How's everybody doing? Good? Thumbs up? Good. Okay. Cassie, are you related to Rachel Betcher?
No.
No? So Rachel, do you know Rachel?
Where is she from?
Yeah, Rachel is she is a newly minted parenting educator who she finished the program at Minnesota about a year ago, I guess. No, actually, yeah. And anyway, but this is her first year, and she's in Robbinsdale. Yeah, yeah. But
is it spelled the same way?
It is. Exactly. So, Austin, Minnesota. So, if you are new to us today, and Trina, where are you, Trina? A few of you I don't have email addresses for. And the only reason I do that is I have a little baby spreadsheet of people who have been coming to the meetings and email addresses, and then I send out reminders and stuff like that. And then Trina, I realized after our last meeting, I did not have yours. So, is there anybody on? And so Cassie, if I could have yours.
You just want it in the chat?
Yep, perfect. And there's Cassie. Good. Nikki, how did your Zoom thing go the other night?
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah?
It went really well. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about, hi everybody, as you're coming in. Also, I need to let you know this is being recorded. So whatever you need to do to help yourself feel comfortable under a recorded situation, please do that. Anyway, so, but Nikki Murphy from Robbinsdale had, it was what, like a public parenting education kind of thing?
It was, let's get ready for kindergarten is what it was. It was offered to all of the families that were incoming kindergarten families. And we had a bunch of participants. It was not overwhelming. It was not as many as had registered. But we started off just with some introductions, and then we had them in breakout rooms so they could meet each other. We did not do it by school because we just weren't certain on if every school would be represented and who would be there. And we brought them back, and the technology worked, and so that was fantastic. And we did full questions at the beginning and at the end, and all of the pieces of Zoom that we had hoped would worked. When we sent them into their breakout rooms the second time, they were in the same rooms as they were in the first time. So just some things that we figure out when, like the random assignment, if it would shuffle them or if it would keep them. And the parent and family educator that I was working with, Michelle Berscheid, the two of us, we hadn't facilitated something on Zoom, and she said, well, Nikki, why would we not do a huge event for our first time on Zoom?
Well, good. I'm glad it all went well. One of the things that we've learned from Nikki's experience, so Nikki's in a school district that has been using Google Meet, right, Nikki? And so Zoom but she asserted herself to the school district and said, I need to use Zoom for this event because it allows me to break people into small groups, and I can't do that with Google Meet. And then you had to work with somebody at your school district to give you the permissions to use some of the features, right?
Yes, we had to get permission from district technology, and then once we had that, then I realized Michelle didn't have that. And it was actually okay because you're able to name somebody as a co-host. And the reason that we wanted more than one host was just so that she could float in and, in and out of the breakout rooms, as we knew we would have more breakout rooms than one person to visit. So it worked. She was able to get in and out.
Good. And that's part of our doing this too. Our sessions is we sort of are identifying best practice in a way, and some tips of things that work, and definitely having another pair of hands, another pair of eyes, pre-testing, not making assumptions that technology is going to work exactly the way that we expect it's going to work, and having plan Bs and things like that can be super helpful. So well, good. I'm glad it went well. So welcome everybody again. We have a few more people who have joined us, and just to save time, you can see the names of everybody. I'm assuming here I am assuming that you are familiar with Zoom. You got in, so there's that. And again, as a reminder to those of you who have just joined us, I am recording, and traditionally we share the recordings back so that all the folks in the whole universe can learn and watch our videos. Over the last few weeks, as we've talked, as we've been sharing our experiences, your experiences, transferring your ECFE programs or your parenting education or early childhood efforts to an online experience, largely these meetings have been an opportunity to share those experiences. And one of the big topics that came up was about fall planning. And we had a session on Friday. So we've been doing this, Wednesdays and Fridays. And so we had a session on Friday that went, I think, pretty well. And the way that we did it was to break into small groups, and really to just talk about whatever you want to talk about related to fall planning. And we had a list of sort of thoughts related to the components of ECFE, delivery of early childhood, parent-child interaction, parent education outreach, in terms of accessing new families. I mean, definitely a constraint. And one of the things we've said all along has been one of the advantages of, if there's an advantage to the whole COVID social distancing thing happening in March, was that we already had time with families. I've had time with my students, certainly my undergraduate students in the classroom, so that when I needed to finish out the semester on Zoom, I already built up that social capital with them, right? In the classroom, they already knew me, they knew my personality, they'd gotten a sense of flow of how our class worked, a sense of discussion of how I handle questions and answers, all of that stuff, right? And so the same thing for you with your parents. And so one of the questions too that's come up, should the situation continue in the fall, is what are you going to do about new families, right? And attracting new families. And if there's a new, a parent who gives birth in the spring and they bring their 6-month-old to ECFE for the first time, but that's an online experience. Like, how do you engage with them and help them? So that might be another thing you all want to talk about. Ins and outs of using certain technologies, harder to reach families, especially because of technology access. There is, I forget what the current figure is, but I know there's been a recent discussion about students now with the COVID and social distancing, that I think it's like 1 out of every 5 students has had challenges with accessing technology to do sort of the schoolwork and things like that. And also, I ask you to think about access within the home, because we can often think about, oh, well, the family has internet and the family has technology, right? And because I see these moms and they use their smartphones when they come to my class, but we need to think about access within the home, and that a computer shared by many people within a family can really reduce the time that a parent might have access to Zoom or access with their kids. There's also the idea of, the smartphone for the family could be the computer, right, that is completely shared. Access can also be by your school district. There are some school districts that are distributing, hotspots and tablets and things like that. And Kim Sedlicki, Kim, is your school district distributing technology out to families?
The kids all have Chromebooks from like 3rd through 12th grade, but our district is one of like the red districts on the map they did with the studies for kids who have access to internet. I run into a lot of families who, in the first month of social distance learning, ran out.
Oh.
She got cut out, actually.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of dead zones in our area too, being a rural area. So yeah, that is a big concern here.
Okay. So the irony is, as you were talking, I think one of those, like, I don't know, but anyway, your audio cut out. So, but we get it, dead zones in your So one of the great things about these conversations that we're having centrally is that we're hearing different experiences with different school districts. And so access isn't the same, across Minnesota either. And then there's also just that idea too of exhaustion access, in the sense of, one of the things we talked about, I think it was Friday maybe, was in trying to plan of asking parents or trying to hold sessions at nighttime, and there'd be a bunch of parents who would go like, that's when I want to hold a session because my kids are sleeping in the afternoon, and then that's the time that and then nobody would show up, right? And it's just like, well, of course they're not showing up. By the time the kids are in bed, like, they just want to like surf the internet and check in with friends, and so maybe they have like their learning brain off. So it could be access, right? So that could be something else you want to talk about. So there's, those are just a few of the things, especially for some of you newbies that maybe you weren't here before, but the kinds of things that have come up over the last couple of weeks. Before we break into groups, anything anybody wants to ask or share or bring up, request? Deb?
There's my unmute. So I am wondering, I'm hearing that Eden Prairie's ECFE has already been canceled for the fall. This is a rumor. I have not heard this for sure. And I know that when I had the conversation with my coordinator about what my assignment might be in the fall, she said she does not know whether we will be running ECFE programming. So I'm curious, and maybe some of you know what the Department of Ed would say about that, because what happened to the need for all school districts to offer ECFE? Is it possible for them to just table that? Does anyone know anything about that? it might just be a wait and see kind of a thing too, as we, have more clarity on what's going to happen. But I am preparing to not have any work in the fall. So.
Well, I will say some of the I'm surrounded by small districts. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when this all happened this spring, the districts around me, they instantly stopped their ECFE programming because it's a parent funded program is what they said. So because they couldn't offer the services the parents were paying for, they were all laid off. Where my district, we're trying to figure out ways to keep it going.
I think Kim's done
Yeah.
talking. I'm not sure. I'll just add that my coordinator was open to the idea of offering online parent ed, whether or not we have ECFE.
Okay.
And so we may still be able to do some things like that. But, again, being a fee-based program, we don't know whether people will sign up, whether that's what they want. So yeah, I was just wondering what you all are hearing about that.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I know, or what used to be with ECFE, is that technically we have protected funding from the state. Whether or not that has changed in the last few years, I'm not 100% sure, but it should be protected funding that is, I think it was $120 per child within your district that was meant to go specifically for ECFE. However, that said, I do know that a lot of community ed programs are super hard hit from, because they are all fee-based programs. And given the situation that we're in, I wouldn't be surprised if the legislature or if community eds independently may make the choice to use that funding in a different way. That would be the worst case scenario in my book. Absolutely, 100%. But technically, by legislative decree, funding for ECFE is protected, is my understanding. However, that's what I know, but I think that is something that we have to be aware of and keep our districts accountable for that as well.
Mm-hmm. So almost like a plan C. I mean, because we've been talking about sort of the plan A of ECFE as normal, a plan B of ECFE and some sort of a hybrid, or as like Deb was saying, completely online, and a plan C, at least by the district, might be no ECFE at all. Yep. Janet, are you on the Menafee board? Oh, I'm sorry, Deb, go ahead.
I'll just say real quickly, she did say something about flexibility, like the MDE was going to be giving them a lot of flexibility with what they did with those dollars. Or that's her read on it. So yeah.
Yeah. Which can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on who's doing the interpretation of the spending, right?
If I could just weigh in for a second, it's definitely going to require some sort of legislature action to be able to take that money. It's very well protected, and the reason that I know this is because Minneapolis Public Schools would have taken our money for ECFE a long time ago for K-12. So I think Susan's right. Keep an eye on it and keep them accountable, because it shouldn't be easy for anyone to shift that money around.
Yeah. Is anybody on the Menafee board on the call? Because I would hope that Menafee and Mike at MDE continue to have their ear to the ground on this stuff, and will keep you all abreast over the summer.
Yeah, I would assume that. I haven't been on the board in a couple of years now, but I do know that that's one of the big focuses of Menafee, that is that legislative piece, and making sure that the money is used for ECFE and not for other programming, which it has been in the past, but is technically not supposed to happen. So again, it's about keeping your school district and keeping your parents engaged, and that advocacy piece.
Yep.
Actually, I was going to say, maybe Shannon, you could speak more to it too. what would be some good ideas for keeping the district accountable? Like what could individuals such as yourselves do to do so?
Well, you know, I do know that budgets are supposed to be transparent. Definitely be asking for transparency in budgets and where funding is coming from. Definitely be involved in Menafee if you can be. I think that that is really important. That is our primary legislative advocacy for our own professional organization. They're the ones that have our back. And you know, your parents are your best allies when it comes to any kind of advocacy. So if you do know, or if you find out something, of course, talk to your union as well, I think is another option as well. So, yeah.
I'd say another thing that we just did recently, Deb and I worked together for Edina, and we just reacquainted ourselves with the actual language in the statute that mandates ECFE, and it was interesting to read that, having done the work, and compare our lived experience at school with what the statute calls for. And I have to admit, it wasn't, as a person who is a parent educator for parents of pre-K and older kids, it was interesting for me to read that, or at least that's been my job from so far, that ECFE the statute gives some flexibility to districts if, due to funding, they are allowed to cut, to pare it down to a 0 to 3 program, which is pretty explicit in the statute. And somebody correct me if I'm misunderstanding that, but that was noteworthy to me because my work is 4s and up. So I know they already have that flexibility. They don't have flexibility to just eliminate a program, but they certainly do have flexibility, districts do, to pare it down in that way. And our coordinator has also said that she's not sure, speculating that 0 to choose ECFE, that she's even going to start the year with that, because she's not thinking that parents are going to want to bring babes into school. I don't happen to agree with that, but she hasn't asked for my opinion, so I might give it anyway. But it's just interesting to I think reading the statute is another important thing for us to do if we haven't recently.
Good. Wow. Keep on. Good. Well, thanks everyone. Do you want to break? Let me just quickly check in. Some of you were here on Friday. Do you want to break into groups for fall planning or summer? Or you want to stay as a full group? Let's do a thumbs up for under your reaction button. So thumbs up if you want to break into small groups. 1, 2, Naomi. Anybody else? I'm easy. You want to stay as a full group? That's cool too.
I missed Friday, so, but I can go back and watch the what's on the YouTube channel too, so I can benefit from.
Oh, okay.
From the group discussion, small group discussion.
Okay. And the way that we did it on Friday was to divide by size. So the school districts that had more than 2 parenting educators were groups, and then those that were 1 or 2 school districts, 1 or 2 parenting educators were a small group. And that sort of size of program seemed to make a big difference in the conversation. So, and I know a few of you in terms of the size of your districts, and Kim, are you and anyway, so that's just that. So, but if you want to stay together as a full group, but I will tell you, I'm not going to facilitate the conversation because you all are your better discussants, because you know the issues that are most relevant to you and the questions that are most important. And Deb is leaving, so bye, Deb. Okay, so we'll stay as a full group. We're being recorded. I do have actually a parenting educator program advisory meeting at 1 that I'm not going to leave. They know that I'm doing this too, so I may be. Does anybody know? Can you do 2 Zooms at one time? So This will be the experiment, my experiment. So anyway, so if you see me sort of float in and out, generally we've been meeting for an hour, but and I have from 12 to 1. However, we did go for longer on Friday since it is fall planning and it's pretty big stuff and we easily use the time. That said, I respect your time. And so if you want to just close it off at 1 o'clock, that's perfectly cool too. So anyway, all right, well, let's just go. Who's got a question or a thought about fall planning?
I was just going to ask about the different ways that you do your ECFE programming and how this is impacting all of those things. I mean, we have our community-based ECFE programming, parent-child classes at the center, but we also have our home visiting, our community groups, example being the women's shelter and the jail. And then we have our family literacy program as well, trying to think, and then what we call our Way to Grow groups, which are targeted for different populations. We have our ALC parent group. We have a lot of different, we have a variety, and right now the only thing that we've done the parent child through email and some Google Meets at the end here. And home visiting kept going one-to-one with phone or Google Meet in the way that parents were able. Family literacy really struggled, you know, with connecting, although they did try to do that. Our Way to Grow groups, much less participation than a typical parent-child group. And then there's parent workshops, you know, those kinds of things too. So we have such a variety, and I was just curious if your small groups discussed any of those things on Friday. With that. So just put that out there, and I don't know if anyone wants to talk to that, or just as we go through, maybe mention some of that.
I can't really speak to the groups that you're talking about. I'm a lone person in Austin, so we do family literacy, but that's the only outreach I have time to do as a sole parent educator. But we've moved ahead just doing our fall planning as it is, and we added in a night Zoom for babies just because we had such good response to people joining in babies now since they were home. And I think that Zoom feature gave them kind of a germ-free approach to handling new baby. So I think that was well received. And then we're planning to do a night parents only in a Zoom format. And they've been given permission to just, because I commute, I live in Albert Lee. So I've been given permission to just stay home and do those classes, so that I'm a little bit more flexible to do those at night. But I am getting a little bit more heightened about, will we even be able to meet in the fall? And I am concerned about that relationship building, because I think that's why people showed up. I think because they knew us and we have that relationship already built. We had already started before the shutdown. So my families were just aching to get together again and connect with each other. So that's how we're proceeding right now.
So Cassie, I'll just respond to one thing you said, which is that if we can't gather in the fall, people are still going to yearn to connect. And so I do have hope that there still will be a demand for our classes, even if only via Zoom, because it's better than nothing, frankly. And we are in our district, we have gone, we throughout the fall catalog for the school year catalog for parent ed at the end of February, and has not changed. It's enrolling as though that's all happening, which I think we all know that is probably very slim to no likelihood. So we haven't got convened as a team to brainstorm how we would modify that, which is why these conversations are so valuable for me. and I think for Deb and for our whole team. So we're wishing for that from our coordinator, but I feel like she's facing so much uncertainty just in general. That's a lot to expect from her to be, but I know that other districts are starting to do that because some of you have shared that you've done it. You've had meetings like that already. So it's a little discouraging. So even if we can't meet, I do feel like Zoom is better than nothing. And I'd be curious to survey the group around if we can have groups of 10 or fewer, which is the current guidance, right? So 1-to-9 ratio. One of the ideas we talked about last Friday was, in our small group, was like reverse home visits where you have a class and kind of like when it's your snack day, but it's your day to come to school. So say you have a class that meets every Monday and their roster is 16 parent-child dyads, and you, over the course of a month, 4 families actually come to school each week. And so that would be 8 people plus a PE and an early childhood teacher, theoretically, right? So that's your 10. And then you spend time together with, your parent-child spends time together with 3 other dyads and an early childhood teacher and a PE, who can then all lay eyes on each other, have that social engagement in live, real person, play with toys, play with kids, you know, all that stuff. Parents can get together on a rotating schedule. So there is some human to human contact, but they're part of this bigger community of 16 that when they're not at school, that class is still meeting. You'd have to rig up the technology so you could do the parent ed with the people present and then the other 12. But I don't think that's impossible. Anyway, that was an idea that we talked about if we're limited to the number of people who can actually come into the building, which is kind of growing on me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it sounds pretty expensive for schools, so I'm not sure, but I don't know, maybe it's no more expensive than just running an ECFE, a regular ECFE class.
At least you would have time for that in-person connection that people
exactly
really, if you want to build a relationship, you need that. You just
exactly. And the children, parents are very concerned about social development, right? And so the kids would have opportunity to interact with 3 other kids there on their Monday, right? Or their day. It's better than 0.
Right.
It might not even actually be comfortable for everybody. That might feel too exposed for some families, so they might would opt out of that, but I kind of doubt it. I don't know.
I love that idea. I think that's really a creative way of doing it. We've also been talking a little bit about how can we better utilize our outdoor space in that same kind of a way. And we're fortunate enough to get a bunch of funds so that we could actually add some different things into our outdoor space. And when we were buying materials, we specifically thought to ourselves, okay, what can we make sure that we have that will be conducive to that social distancing and learning at the same time. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think that idea of smaller groups of people utilizing the outdoors as much as we can, especially in the fall and you know, into the winter. Yeah. I'm dual licensed, so I teach both early childhood and parent ed. So I have kind of a different perspective. Does anybody else have a dual license in this group? I'm curious. Trina, okay. And I think that has informed my own work as I move forward too, and as I kind of be thinking about things. So I'd be curious for those who are dual licensed if they have any different ideas as well.
I was just going to offer, in Prior Lake Savage, we do have a nature play space that's quite developed. And I've had the opportunity in the past to do, it's really geared at our probably toddler 2s. It's a smallish, kind of behind the school. It's a little alcove we put in a bridge, we have a garden, we've got just really basic nature play spaces for the very young. And in the past, we have done fall classes where we never entered the building. So if when families knew that we put out our weather guidelines, you know, we even had rain was okay, you know, if it's storming or not, you know, we were real specific on when it could happen and when it couldn't happen. But I feel like a key to it working well, however, was I think for those toddler outdoor classes, it was an hour. You know, we limited the time, which really helped as well. And there was a little parenting component to it as well that happened right outside as children got more busy into their play. Then the children's teacher would kind of watch a little closer and the parents would kind of gather on this little hill area. And so it really worked better than I imagined. So I can kind of see this being something that could be potentially a good idea for fall.
So it sounds like it was kind of similar to like a non-separating class for young children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But even if we could offer that in the fall for, you know, maybe a mini session, again, it's building some new relationships that should we end up going to all online for winter or as the season goes on or the illnesses increase, at least we've had that opportunity to build some relationships.
So in Wayzata, we are almost done building a brand new school. This week we all went in and got all of our personal items out of our old school and said goodbye to it. They have hired a moving company to come pack us up. So I'm hopeful we now have a space outside for outdoor stuff, and I love that idea. And I have been to Prior Lake and seen their space, and it is amazing. Such a cool area. And so I love that idea, and thank you, Sarah, for your idea for maybe the rotating stuff, because we now have a slightly bigger classroom, and so we were going to increase our sizes. But much like a lot of you have said, we are not getting our LOAs until July 15th, so no one really knows what's going on right now. Just kind of waiting for the district to figure out what this is going to look like. But I'm just curious, is anyone doing summer anything? I know this conversation is geared towards fall, but we have a lot of ideas of things that we can do this summer. We have a kind of big list of things that we're gonna share with our coordinator on Friday to try and get approval for, but just curious what other people are doing.
Sarah, I just want to pop in, Naomi. So I forget which, if you go to the playlist for the YouTube thing where we have the different videos, on a Tuesday group, actually, Greta Nelson from Cambridge Asante. So she's very interested in having a conversation about summer programming. Oh my God, I just realized my face is huge. She had a conversation about summer programming, and so if you watch that video of that Zoom meeting that we had, this is probably a week and a half or so ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe just last Tuesday. Anyway, but that was all on discussion of others who are interested in summer.
How do I access that?
So there's a playlist. I'll get the link. I'll put it here while you guys are talking. But it's to YouTube, and all of the videos from these Zoom sessions are posted there. So
thank you.
Yeah. And Naomi, could you? I don't know if I have your email address. So at some point, would you just type into the chat your that? Okay. Sorry, Sarah. Carry on.
Yeah, okay, so Edina is doing Book Buddies, which is typically a well-loved in-person summer program that I was never a parent participating in, and I haven't been a part of running it, so I don't totally understand it, but they've adapted it for COVID to, there's nothing synchronous. It's all like sort of seesaw and then activities around a book. But they did registration for that opened yesterday, and if you talk amongst yourselves for a second, I think I can check and see whether there was a burst of interest or not. Again, it's for 3 to 5 year olds. It's nothing synchronous, but I think it's for some families might feel like better than nothing. So I'll check just a sec.
kind of to Sarah's point earlier, we, as we kind of wrapped up our year last week, all of our classes, and we are a year-long program, so our families have been with us in September. So although obviously online was not ideal for all families, I mean, we had a pretty good turnout because we had that relationship, but a lot of them had said like they weren't ready to lose that connection. They wanted to continue. And so luckily we do have the district's approval and backing to offer stuff up this summer. I'm also, not only do I teach a lot of the regular ECFE classes, but I'm also on the outreach team, and we teach classes out in the community and a lot of different options for families. And so we're going to try and target all families this summer and not just our outreach families that we've been supporting throughout the year. So just curious what others are doing, but I'll look into that other thing. Thanks, Susan.
Yeah, I'd be really
We are
curious.
actually considering.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was just going to say, I'd be really curious to know a little bit. We're struggling with registrations for fall at the moment, and because people just don't know what's going to happen, and they don't know what I think is going to happen with that. None of us do. But how you are doing that outreach to encourage or even marketing your classes for the fall to try and get people to register. And along with that, Naomi, as you talked about the outreach piece of, and I mean, what are you saying to parents to get them to register for classes?
I'm really curious about when your registrations have been happening, because we're in our second school year of doing registration for fall, starting in February when the kindergarten registration comes open. So who is that typical for? And previously we were registering over the summer for fall classes, and then we are a split year program. We re-enroll mid-year with our classes, and so we would have, you know, the catalog for registering for the winter spring semester coming out at right around November, December. So we're only in our second year of registering in February. So yeah, we're basically, what we're just saying to families is that we're proceeding as is, and that we will let them know and keep them updated about any changes. So we're just encouraging them to register and letting them know that if something changes and they would choose, you know, to disenroll, that certainly can happen. And that works really well for our typical ECFE center-based classes, but the other community outreach type programming and things like that's a little bit different. And so those groups, we're just really not quite sure how what's going to happen there, because we don't know what's happening in all of those settings either. So yeah. So is there anybody who's still doing summer registration for fall classes? Okay.
Robbinsdale, we did the same thing this year. So we combined our preschool brochure and our ECFE brochure into one. So we just have one early childhood brochure, and we started registering earlier. And it actually seemed to go really well, but I will say, like, so our district, the first day we were closed was March 13th, and literally our registration just died on that day. We've had one registration since that day. And so we tried to do a push. We used Elio for registration, and we kind of rigged that so that parents didn't have to pay to register. And so we tried to do a push of register now and pay later, and let families know, you know, that way you can have your spot in class, but there's no financial commitment, you know, and we'll keep you posted. But we did that a few weeks ago, and we've only had one registration since then. So I think that's something I'm the most worried about, is just our numbers are so low. So I just am not sure how to, you know, if there's just going to be a big push in August or a big, you know, increase in August, if we do have in-person classes, or I'd be curious how other people are marketing that too, because I just worry, even if we are going to run classes, that looking at our numbers right now, they're just so low.
I know for Wayzata, I just finished my third year there. So they always register in February, we were year-long classes, our ECFE and preschool brochures all in one. And our coordinator every year tells me, she goes, preschool fills right away. ECFE parents aren't thinking about ECFE until August, some of them September, some of them November when they join us. So I don't know in the current times if that would change, but I know for at least our trend with families is ECFE enrollment over the summer looks really scary. And then in the past, like August, all of a sudden everybody's just like, oh yeah, we should probably register for ECFE now. That's also too when the district gets all of the new babies that have been born, and that's when all of the mailings go out to families to kind of remind them that ECFE is there and an option. So, but again, I don't know how that's going to look with current situations and families.
One thing I forgot to mention too, with when all of the classes did stop, I think it was at the beginning of April, perhaps, when our coordinator decided that they were going to give partial refund or refund for the rest of the school year. And so then when we did that, then our head clerical person, she personally called each family. And then of course we were in touch as teachers too. And at the time that she called them, she also let them know that if they wanted to put in their registration for fall at that time, they could. So we actually did have, they could take their credit or they could transfer it to a fall registration and then just hold their spot. And a lot of families did that, you know, at that point in time. So that was somewhere at the beginning of April, I think, that happened. So that was kind of a marketing strategy.
Yeah. In Minneapolis, we normally would be registering for summer right now and having our fall registration in July, but we had already canceled summer for this year, not anything due to COVID, due to budgetary reasons for Minneapolis. So we just rolled the end of the school year right into, along with kindergarten registration, registering for ECFE in the fall. And I'm not sure how it's going. I sent out a text to see if I could get some input for you guys. But the message that we've given parents is sign up now, get your spot. Our twos classes and our toddler classes and some of our infant classes fill up really, really fast always. So the messaging went out, sign up, get your spot, register. And if we are still distance learning in the fall and that doesn't suit you, you have the option of a full refund at any point. So that's one thing Minneapolis is doing to try to make sure that people still sign up for classes. And if I hear while we're in this chat how it's going, I'll let you guys know.
So
Sorry, guys,
comment that
no
I did
information.
put into that.
Oh, I was just going to reflect on what Christy was saying. As a airline traveler and seeing all this conversation about booking travel and vouchers is flexibility with customers seems to be the big sell, you know, because I mean, it's such an ambiguous time. And I've also heard from a lot of districts that they're not getting a lot of direction yet from their coordinators and administrators because they're not getting direction either, you know, to keep going up the food chain. And so the best people can do is like, well, maybe this and maybe this and maybe this, but yet from the side of, you know, and from us at the university, we don't have any final word either. My friends who have kids in college, like they're going, what's the university doing? You know, well, we don't know, you know, they've just told us to be prepared kind of as you're talking about of doing in class, but you have to have an online version available for a portion of students who aren't on campus. Anyway, so I just wanted to reflect on what Christy was saying, that it seems as though it's wise about the only thing that you can do to keep customers or bring them in is to give them a sense of flexibility. I'm sorry, Sarah?
I don't have any information on summer enrollment. I don't seem to be able to find that information, but I will also add for kicks and giggles that Edina Community Ed has also launched a concurrent, like a revised slate of community ed options, which is reassuring to me because, you know, tuition and fees is a big deal. And so they've done, what they're doing is registration opened yesterday for June. and it's going to open at some point in July, June for July, and then sometime in July for August. So they're taking it a month at a time. Speaking of flexibility, they've really protected themselves against having to do any more refunds, because I guess that's hugely labor intensive. And they've already had to do that, you know, for the last 2 months of stuff, plus whatever summer, pre-COVID. So I think that's great. And I don't know how enrollment's going with that either, but I really liked the catalog that they offered. They're doing like some things for kids, like 10, like in-person, some things that seemed reasonable and doable within the guidelines that were issued a week or two ago, and but also a lot of online things, and they're continuing, you know, like driver's ed and all their stuff that they do, but it's all going to be virtual. So I really have appreciated their flexibility and their ingenuity, and I'm hopeful that families are responding by supporting and doing the classes, but I don't know. I can try to find the link for that catalog and paste it in the chat. Hold on.
Was it Jessica who said that you used Elio and that you were able to set it up so that people didn't have to pay? We have Elio too, but it always seems like no one knows how to work with it. So yeah, do you have a technology person that does that with you, or is that your clerical and ECFE, or how did?
No, it was just us. I also work with our office staff, so lots of emails and phone calls with Elio. Basically what it is it's setting up, we set up 3 payments, and the first payment is $0. But I'm happy to, you know, talk with you more, or put you in touch with our office people who kind of set it up if you want to know more about how they did it.
Well, it might be helpful, because if I bring this up to my administrator and I say, this is how you do it, it might be easier to follow through on.
Yeah, I'll put my, in Robbinsdale. I'll put my email in the chat, and then feel free to email me. And I wasn't the one who actually set it up, but our office staff just recently did it. So I know that they'll be able to help if they're interested.
Thank you.
So going back to the question about fall and programming and building relationships, one thing that I have been surprised in, and that I've been doing in the summer and that I will be doing in the fall is kind of like these story times where I do both the parent ed and the early childhood part. So I have the kids there with their parents, and we do circle times and we do songs, and then I do like little mini parent ed with it. And I have been surprised that I've done only 2, and the connections that I've created with the kids and the parents via Zoom were more intense than I had expected. And which gives me a lot of hope for how we might be able to do this in the fall. And that, but what I found is that creating the connection with the child then facilitates the connection with the adult. And I don't know if anybody else has had that experience or something similar to that. I'd be curious.
I was busy writing, so I didn't hear you, Shannon, say whether they were children you knew before or children you were just meeting.
Good question. I had maybe met a couple of them before. It was kind of a blanket, hey, there's a story time on Zoom, everybody's welcome to attend. And a couple of them I had known that I had met maybe 2 or 3 times, but I would say that a lot of them I hadn't met before. And just making that story time really engaging and having the kids be super engaged help the parents become engaged. And then afterwards I did a quick little introduce yourself, tell me one thing you're loving about your kid, and that kind of a thing. And that worked better than I expected. And they're all super excited for some other ones. So yeah, I'm thrilled about that. Gives me hope.
And Shannon, I'm struck by, I was really curious about the process of reaching out to children and yet engaging parents, because I could see parents interested in having their children engaged, and then they're sitting there with their kids, and then because you know, on my Facebook feed, I see so many story times from public libraries and things like that, which are and from some of the ECFE programs and stuff like that, which is lovely. But then what is that next step to engaging the parents? And so you know, there's parent listening. So it's that last piece that you mentioned where you intentionally asked a question that brought the parents into the interaction.
Yeah, I think that was what's really helpful. And because I did it synchronous and made it really engaging for the kids, like I would ask them, you know, I read a book about something on your head, and I had them all put something on their head, and the parents could get involved in that. And so they felt like they were a part of it as well. And then the kids were more willing to kind of stay beside the parents, at least a little bit, while the parents could answer the question. Like I said, it worked out better than I thought it was. And it was a class, it was story time that was offered from basically 1 to 5. So I had a range of kiddos.
You know, I know Music Together is doing a distance learning based model. They adapted for their spring and now also their summer. I used to teach Music Together, so I know a little bit about that. And what they have done is they are having a synchronous time 1 day a week, and then which is like 20 minutes for little kids and their parents. And then they also do a pre-recorded, like, sort of follow-up of additional songs or additional ways to play with the songs that the child and parent can watch again and again and again, like it's a video, right, that they can watch again and again. So, so I thought that was an interesting hybrid, a shorter synchronous time, and then a follow-up, like, video piece of material that the families can engage with as desired over and over again.
Just a follow-up to, I got some information back about MPS. First of all, I was wrong. Apparently we started last year taking fall registration already at this time, as well as our summer registration. Super awkward, since I'm the one that puts that stuff out online, that I spaced that. But anyway, apparently we're at 30% of where we were at last year at this time for fall.
Thanks, Christy. No, I was just going to reflect on, and not just what Sarah was saying, but another theme that has been running through the conversations about fall planning, but in general, has been not doing business as usual. And by that, I don't just mean Zoom versus face-to-face, but it's changing up some of the ways of, you know, one of the things that has been thrown out, you know, is this idea of that ECFE, you purchase more like a membership, right? And so you could come, just like you go to the Y, you go whenever you want to, right? And so again, it's that idea of flexibility, but it's not business as usual, but yet it is still offering a program, right? And so I'll put I assume, I hope, anyway, you all got the link to my little survey. And so let me know if you do have any questions about that. But the whole intention is, you know, I've just grown in curiosity anyway, just in how things are going. And rather than having a lot of, you know, objective questions where you click and things like that, it's just like, I'm just asking you, like, just open up written questions and you can tell me how it's going for you and your experiences. But one of the questions that is on there was actually contributed by Meredith Samuelson from St. Paul, when I was asking the St. Paul staff and was with them about the survey and what kind of questions would they like asked. And she was the one who came up with the wording on re-envisioning, you know, re-envisioning how we offer an ECFE program in ways that meets the needs of families. And one sort of evocative consideration from sort of the existing situation is the change that might occur because it's nothing that anybody looked or planned for. If anything, we all know is how hard it is to, you know, like change is like an iceberg. And so you come in and want to make anything different, and people have been doing the same thing forever, like it's impossible to make change. But then you have something like this hit and everybody has to stop business and then sort of reinvent, then maybe it's a good time, right, to think about not only alternate ways of online, offline, reaching people, but are there different ways that a program like ECFE, for its spirit of connectedness and support and education and children's learning and their socialization and all of those things, you know, are there some different ways that it could be, that it could operate? And not just for survivability, although that's pretty high on the list, of course, but also for effectiveness. You know, just because the traditional model has been working, and there can be an argument of it, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But it's a new generation, it's a new time, and it's possible that with everything going on, it is a good time to step back and ask if there could be some new visioning for the way that programs operate. So anyway, let me do a quick check-in with you. It's 1 o'clock. We can bring things to a close. It's been a good hour. Do you want to continue talking? What would you like to do?
I know that I have to go, so.
Okay, so there's a few of you. Sorry, all right. Well, I'll just leave it there then. I mean, it's a good, we'll wrap it up. But let me, before you leave, and if you have to leave, absolutely. We'll just do, I just want to do a quick check-in. From today's conversation, what was inspiring to you? You know, when we met on Friday, I asked folks what they wanted to get out of our talk, our session together. And the big thing was, you know, to get ideas. And so I would, just as we're closing up, let's just do a quick check-in before you leave. What did you hear today? Or what did you get out of today's session that's inspiring to you? What's always inspiring to me is to be with you. So I'll just throw that out.
I think what you just said about re-envisioning and holding on and embracing, you know, what ECFE is, but also what could it look like moving forward. So I think that's hopeful.
Yeah, all the
I love the re-envisioning. Sorry, Christy.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I love the re-envisioning too. And I also love just being a part of a community that really loves ECFE and really loves the craft of this work and values it highly, and is really motivated to sustain it over kind of through this transition. Great to feel like part of a larger kind of army of people.
Totally agree. I loved all the ideas about just the different thoughts, the potentially alternating groups of parents or families coming in, and the outdoor spaces, and then the membership idea, just the way you summarize it all about just reimagining. So it felt very inspiring. Thank you all.
I just have to just do everything that everyone else said, and just really appreciate having the opportunity to just meet with colleagues that are in different areas of the state. It's really made a difference, just helped a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think
I second, third, and fourth, a lot of the people who are talking just about all of these things, ideas, being able to connect across the state and to hear all of these different ideas. It was in our small group, I think, that we were talking about this idea of rotating kids throughout the classroom on Friday. And I appreciated hearing today about the idea of being outside. And I think that for fall, for sure, that's going to be an option that I'd like to explore a little bit more. And then also in thinking about how do we create relationships online, a good friend and colleague had said to me, Nikki, remember, we want things to be as successful as possible. We want to create relationships. We want to do what we can with keeping in mind that what we know is that the face-to-face is what is important. And we have worked really hard to get to where we are at within ECFE over the years. And we don't want to give a message across the state that we don't need our classrooms anymore. it's going to be important to continue to advocate for who we are and what we need and the components of what ECFE is. And so while we try to re-envision, I just hope that what we are trying to re-envision, that, and I know I've said it to our group before, but that we continue to maintain the parent-child interaction piece and the early childhood development and the parenting piece, because we want to make sure that what we re-envision still has the integrity of what we've done in the past, and that we carry that into the future and maybe possibly reinvent what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thank you all. This is great. And then as we wrap up again, the video will be available. And I had you, if you hadn't before, please give me your email, because I have, and I'll send back to this group then a link to the YouTube thing in case you're not on Friends of Family Education, and then also a link to our little spreadsheet. And then my final question is, I don't know where you're at with your school years, but you know, we've been meeting, we're going to meet again on Friday. And I imagine we'll continue talking about fall planning then. Would this, and I know some of you can't make it on Fridays, and I don't know, maybe your schedules now have changed, but I'm just also getting a feel for meeting. So would you want another Wednesday session, like next week at noon? Would you prefer that? Because I'm totally like there. So it doesn't, you know, I would say it doesn't make a difference to me because I love connecting with you. So, but I'm just saying, if you would like to, I can make that happen. But if it's something like this has served its purpose or whatever. So, Sarah, so, okay, Jessica would, okay. Oh, Cassie, good. All right. All right, there's enough thumbs up. We're gonna do it again next week at noon. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, I'm going to leave. I'm going to scoot over to the university meeting, and I will carry your good love and wishes over to other parenting educators. And for all of you former students, love to see you again. So, all right, everybody, take care. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you.